What is going on, Multiversers? Welcome back to the channel. Please ignore the voice. I think I'm actually losing my voice. But either way, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the character buffs slash nerfs for Multiversus Part 2. I said last week after we did that video, if you guys liked it enough, I'll find more that Tony told us about. And, well, you guys seem to like that one. So here's Part 2. Here's more character buffs. I guess just very few buffs and a lot more nerfs that the team has been playing around with. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into the first one. And this one, Tony tells us that, well, if you're a Harley Quinn main or were during the closed alpha and you liked her up air, here's what Tony says. The up air recovery has been increased a bit on Harley. Another way to put that, her up air recovery end lag. That's kind of like if you miss the move, you hit the move, whatever it is, there's going to be a little bit extra time where she's just kind of vulnerable. So you can't just kind of go spamming the same attack over and over and over and over again without any sort of consequence. So if you miss it now and the opponent ends up dodging, well, she will be a little bit more vulnerable out there, so the opponent will have a little bit better chance to attack and, kind of follow up. And I believe her up air that they're referring to is her confetti cannon. So, yeah, if you tried to go around blasting people with that, well, maybe it's not going to be, you can't do it as rapidly as before, but I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. Now on to Steven Universe. Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like he's going to get some sort of nerf here. So here's what Tony says, right? When replying to a fan, somebody asked him about Steven and how's he doing. Tony says, good. Trying to figure out what to do about his bubble crowd control in singles 1v1s. It just kind of stopped the game. And that's true. That's true. You get caught in the bubble and then you're just kind of like floating there. You can't do anything. So like 2v2 is like a different situation, but in 1v1s, and I think this is where any sort of nerf will come to it, might only apply to just maybe the bubble ability here. This will only work, maybe it works differently in 1v1s than it does in 2v2s, but it does look like Tony's trying to change up something about the bubble crowd control thing. So I don't know if the opponent is able to just mash out of it sooner or easier in 1v1 matches or whatever they might end up coming up with, but it does seem the bubble in 1v1s is going to get some sort of tweak. Maybe it's a nerf. We'll end up finding out, but still somewhat important information I wanted to pass on, or I guess Tony wanted to pass on. Now let's move on to Raindog, the originally created character for Multiversus. Now, here's kind of what's going on, right? Somebody says, hey, are you going to nerf Raindog? Felt like the damage output was a bit too much for a support character. It's a fair point. But Tony kind of says this, right? Raindog will have some small nerfs, but I think maybe, and he doesn't elaborate what those small nerfs were to Raindog, but he does, here's a big one. A global nerf to projectile perks will definitely affect Raindog. Raindog had, I think, 2 or 3 different projectiles to play around with. A big old fireball could be pretty crazy. But, and then there were some perks that could, like, increase the projectile speed, damage, and all sorts of stuff. So it looks like they're going to be nerfing projectile perks in a sense. So that will end up hurting Raindog overall. How much that will hurt him in the long run, we'll find out, but it is something to take note of. And again, it's a global nerf to the perk. So any character that would use a projectile perk, Bugs Bunny with his pie, Shaggy with his sandwich, stuff like that, Batman with his batarang, I would have to assume that's a projectile, right? But anybody that has a projectile that would use a perk to boost it in some way, yeah, they're going to feel the exact same effects that Raindog is feeling with the nerf to these perks. Now, moving on to Bugs Bunny, who got, looks like a few moves are going to get some extra end lag, but only on the whiff. So here's what it did. Tony replied to somebody on Twitter asking what changes they've made to Bugs, and, well, Tony's response was a bit more whiff recovery on a few moves and lowered the duration of invulnerability when coming out of the tunnel. So that's good. I did feel like the tunnel and Bugs Bunny was probably the character I played like third most. No, probably third most. So I got to play Bugs quite a bit, and I do believe in my opinion, the tunnel ability did need some sort of nerf. So maybe the duration there, maybe that's a good nerf. I thought the speed in which he travels from one end of the tunnel to the other was ridiculously fast. So maybe that's something they play around with, but. In terms of a bit more of whiff recovery, so when you miss an attack, what moves come to mind for me? His mallet for his down air, maybe the baseball bat swing for his up air attack, possibly his drop kick for forward air. Those come to mind that might get added a little bit more whiff recovery or end leg, if you miss the attack. So, yeah, just try not to miss the attacks and you should be good. But yeah, Bugs getting a little bit of, whiff recovery. Now let's talk about Jake just a little bit here. So somebody was asking Tony if they can fix Jake's forward air so it doesn't beat literally every attack in the game. And Tony gives us he gave the move, Jake's forward air, some whiff recovery. What's Jake's forward air? It's his stretchy punch. So anytime he reaches out. So, but if he misses the attack, whiff recovery. If he misses the attack, he's going to have a little bit of extra, vulnerability after the attack misses. So it's one of those things where if you try to spam a certain move over and over and over again, well, now you can't do it as rapidly as before, which is always a good thing because we don't want spam. Even in a game like Multiversus that does have move decay, where if you use the same attack over and over, the power, the knockback on the attack does diminish over time, but it's still good to see some extra end lag on some of these attacks, especially if you whiff them, because if you're whiffing, then chances are you're whiffing a lot, and if you're whiffing a lot, then you're probably just spamming the same attack, and nobody likes somebody that just spams the same attack over and over. Alright, so we just talked about Jake, but what about his best friend? What about his friend Finn? Does Finn, look, we did talk about Finn last week, but we got a little bit extra to kind of follow up on here. So Tony tells us this about Finn. After looking at Finn's frame data, he had a near instant startup on up air, and he could cancel into anything during the active hit frames. Literally insane. I didn't know that when I was playing the alpha. I guess I didn't try it. I whatever, but it was pretty insane. So you can use the move while you're hitting the opponent, and you can already start going into another attack. That's it's a little, that could be broken depending on how it works out. But and Tony says that it's weird because he didn't see too many Finns using it. So I guess not a lot of people noticed that, but Tony did during his testing and stuff. So basically he fixed it so you can't cancel out of it during the active hit frames anymore. So I guess that's a good change. That's a good change to make. Last but not least, we're going to be talking about Taz. Yeah, I know we talked about him last week, but we got a tiny bit more insight into what Taz might be getting in terms of buffs. So here's what Tony says. Taz got some movement and feel improvements, but nerfed his ability to cancel out of the tornado and reduced the base knockback of it as well. We knew that stuff last week, but the movement, some movement and feel improvement. So when he says movement, I'm going to guess that could be base movement, ground movement, air movement. It could be attack movement, something like that. He doesn't specify what that is, but it is it's something, and he does end off by saying that he still needs some buffs in other areas to compensate. So hopefully they figure out what they need to do in order to, I guess, compensate him for nerfing him. So, and I kind of like that approach too. If you're gonna nerf something on a character that was like their one big thing, you kind of got to raise up another area on the character somewhere, right? So you lower your strength, and do you increase what else do you increase, or something, whatever it might be. But I'm sure they will figure it out, and we'll get to play all these characters and more in the open beta in July. But that's still a few weeks away. But either way, that is going to be it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I guess I'll see ya when I'm looking at you.